Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and Courtney, how are you?
Well, I I made the mistake of like watching the opening of one of our videos that I was not like opening. And I make the weirdest faces when you introduce the video. I don't even know why or like how it happens, but every time, I guess I just can't sit still and look at you. So I have to
Yeah.
make weird faces. So I saw that this morning and I was like, oh, that's strange. And
I mean,
probably has happened 300 other times.
to be fair, when I'm not the one leading the video, 90% of the video is me looking like this and just answering you while I'm staring at the desk and not at the computer or the camera or anything. So like, I feel you watching the video of myself. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, we're so good at being on camera. So we hope you enjoy it. But no, I'm otherwise, other than my weird faces, I'm fine. I'm in New York. So, well, I'm in New Jersey, but same diff.
Guys.
Um, and I leave again tomorrow. So
That's the
kind of
game for
hectic.
2024. What state is Courtney recording from?
Where's Courtney? I need a C word that's like where's, because there's where's Waldo, and then where in the world is Carmen San Diego? That's really fun, catchy. So we'll come up with
It
something catchy
is.
for me.
I just tried to think of all of the words that I knew for where in all of the other languages, and none of them are start with a C. So like, unfortunate.
Como. How is Courtney? How is Courtney? That would be a good game. That would be a fun game to play too. Um,
I
but
was about to say key a Courtney, but that's who is Courtney. And
who's Courtney? Yeah, again, another one. Who knows? Who knows anymore? It's a mystery. Um, yeah, so I'm in New Jersey. I've been here for I don't know, 4 days. I don't know what day it is anymore. I flew in Friday and I met up with Jacqueline and I went to a show with Caitlin. And then I did some unseen artist stuff with Noelle. And then I fought all of the trains today in New York, which why come here if you're not gonna do that? Um, so that was fun. But most important of the things that I've done in the past week since we've spoken. And perhaps the most important thing I've done in my life. Who's to say? Last Tuesday, Rachel and I went to the Jesse McCartney concert, and it was truly a magical night. He did all of the best ones, all of the best ones, and a lot of the new ones that I learned 2 days before I went, because I didn't know a lot of the new ones. There's a song called Thank God. I've got my friends. Or I think it's actually called like Friends, but it's
yeah.
like Thank God I've got my friends. It's really good. The
Um,
last song I knew of his was Wasted, which was while I was studying for the bar.
did
So
he sing Better with You?
yes. Yes. I was gonna say any song you might know. Yes, he did. I was not left with like, oh, I wish he would have played this song. Like, no, he played every song that you would have wanted and
Better with
or
You.
kind of wanted.
Like Better with You is like the first song that was like mine and Dan's song.
Oh, it was
Oh,
so beautiful.
oh.
He, of course, did Beautiful Soul. He did Bleeding Love. She's No You. They had a drink called She's No Peach, and they made it wrong, which made it better for me because it was supposed to be vodka, peach schnapps, soda water, and lemonade. And I don't do lemonade.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'll try. I was like, I'll get Rachel's gonna get it first, and I'll try hers. And then
Yeah,
it was
because
not that sweet.
those flavors go good together, even if you don't like
Right.
lemonade.
Yeah, but I was like, maybe it's not too sweet. Turns out they didn't put lemonade in it. I don't know. They were out of lemonade. So then it was just peach schnapps, vodka, and soda water. And so it was not that sweet either. And so
No.
Rachel didn't like it, but I loved it. So I drank both of ours. We had a great time. Oh my God, these dogs. I have so many dogs around me and cats, and they're in the way. But yeah, so I'm up and down from that high of the best day of my life. It was the Fillmore, which is at Harrah's down in New Orleans. They gave us an apple when we left. Apparently that's the thing the Fillmore used to do is like they're supposed to do it during the concert is they give you an apple so if it gets too loud you can bite down on it. Um I have no idea. But
That's
they gave us
the
an apple when we left.
weirdest thing. I've ever
Yeah.
heard.
So I had an apple in the car on the way home, and Nick picked us up, so he brought us pretzels and Coke. So because he knew that it was a drinking night. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
a good time. So how are you?
I am good. I haven't worked in a week. So that's
Same.
good.
Just JK,
Um,
JK.
no, I my sister came into town she was supposed to land at 11 o'clock last Tuesday and her flight got delayed and she landed at 1 a.m. So we all went to the airport to
Who
get
was
her
she
in the
flying with?
American.
I've been having so
Yeah.
much luck with American. Everyone else, Delta's been bad, Spirit's been bad. I've been doing
Yeah.
good with American.
Yeah, her flight got delayed out of Dallas and she did not land
I'm going to Dallas
until
tomorrow. Ruining
um
my life.
her flight also on the way down got changed and so she's flying through Charlotte instead of Dallas.
I
Uh,
flew through Charlotte on the way up, and I'm flying through Dallas on the way back.
yeah, she did the opposite. But and she's also flying tomorrow, so
Hey,
but
maybe I'll see her in Dallas if I get stuck there.
well no, she's going to Charlotte now.
Oh, right, because she lives in Houston,
Yeah.
not Dallas.
Yeah. Yes.
JK.
But yeah, so I like took after working all day Tuesday and like stressing about my sub plans and everything, I like took a power nap to like be ready because then I went to the airport at 1 o'clock in the morning. Um, and it's just been a very long week, but we did Gabby's bachelorette party and bridal shower this weekend, and both
Ooh.
both of them were like super low key because my sister is not like a crazy go out kind of person, which to be fair is great because like neither am I. If I had to throw a bachelorette party for somebody who like wanted to be like wild, I like don't know what I would do.
Yeah, well, heads up, I'm the bridesmaid that says like, no, this person doesn't want to be crazy, but the one person in the bridal party is like, we're gonna go insane and do all these things, and I tone it all down.
Yeah, no, it's great because my bridesmaids are my two sisters who do not go out, Dan's two sisters who don't really go out, you, Jill, and Brittany, who all know I would rather die than like, so it's great. It'll be fine. My bachelorette will be fine because I've got seven
Yeah.
people who know I
I need a
hate the
group
world.
chat that's not you. I
Yeah,
need a group chat without you. So,
yeah. Well, that's why in August I'm gonna have all of you guys get
mhm.
together and once you've all actually met in person, I can create a group chat with you guys because I feel like it's weird to be like, hey, none of you know who each other are.
No, totally fine. I'm in.
So so in August I'm
I
gonna
know who
have
every
a
one of them are.
well, yes. In August, I'm gonna have a mini meeting of the minds where we're gonna be like, here we go. And then I'll be like, that'll be when I'd be like, this is what your dress you should order is, and we'll do all the stuff that you have to
Excellent.
do early then because that's still 6 months out from the wedding. So
Plenty of time. Plenty of
yeah.
time.
So that's but yeah. So we had our bachelorette party. We turned the basement into the Great British Bake Off tent. It was very cute
Oh,
and we
fun.
ate $200 worth of Chinese food. Um
Amazing.
and it was great. And then for the bridal shower, it was really nice, and people came and they bought, and she got really nice gifts, and we baked a lot this weekend. And by
What
we,
was
I
your
mean,
favorite thing that you baked?
well, the only thing that I made French toast cupcakes with a homemade maple buttercream frosting, and they were so good that Dan actually ate an
Mm,
entire cupcake. I know.
I want that.
Um, but that was the only thing I made. Most of the rest of the weekend, when other people were baking, I was the one sitting on the couch, talking to the children so that they would stay out of the kitchen. Because,
Fair.
yeah, because I was like, there's too many of us, and the baby will follow someone. I mean, not the baby. The baby just laid on the floor, but the 3-year-old will follow someone. Um, so yeah, but it was good. It was nice. I'm really not looking forward to going back to work tomorrow, but that's fine. I kind of need to.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking forward to going back to New Orleans tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie.
Good. It's good.
So,
Yeah. You know,
not
you
that
made
it's
the
been
right.
particularly stressful
No, but
being here.
you know you made the right decision when after a couple days you're like, no, I'm okay. I can leave again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I'm coming back in 2 weeks. So spoiler alert. So, you know.
it's fine. But how about in order to celebrate the fact that we both had pretty great weeks, we send some spiritual uplifting to our audience. That was a
I'm
weird way
not
to
sure
say
if
it.
this is
We're usually like everything is awful, so we need new spiritual guidance, but
no,
we're both like,
right.
we're in a great place today.
I just don't know that this is a little aggressive. But
Okay,
in the
so
best way.
nothing is new here.
Nothing is new here. Um, every now and then, even the sweetest souls burn it to the ground, just to remind the rest of them who exactly they're dealing with. Nicole Lyons.
Yeah, that's true. I literally, the last thing I said to my sister before she left the house today, she was telling me about something that happened to her husband. And I was like, yeah, no, if that conversation had happened and I was in the room, people in that building would not have jobs anymore.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I cut contact and ran and never looked back. So I get it.
yeah. But
Get it.
speaking of speaking of people who don't have jobs anymore, because this episode was a hot mess. Um, it's
I
also
have
rated.
some comments,
You
complaints, questions
okay?
throughout.
Yeah,
So
it's not rated very well. And it was one of those episodes where
sure.
there was this idea there was going to be a big plot twist, but like everything just felt off from the jump. So like, we're talking about season 5, episode 18, The Warrior. It was rated 7.3 stars, which is not the lowest this season, but it's pretty close.
I
And
might have even given it like 6.9 or 7.
I think 6.9 is the lowest of the season.
Well, join the club then.
Um, it came out Friday, April 12th, 2002. And the number one song is still Ain't It Funny by J-Lo, which is very weird because I feel like that has been the number one song for like 8 weeks, even though I for sure still don't know that song.
I mean, it's JLo. It's JLo. It's a
Yeah.
bop.
Yeah. The number one book was still Stephen King's Everything's Eventual, which we talked about last week.
Mhm.
And the number one movie, I am so sick of the early 2000s because I apparently was not aware of anything that was happening in the early 2000s. And granted, I was 10 when this
Sure.
came out. So I can't take that much credit for knowing anything about pop culture. But the number one movie was called Changing Lanes.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
See, it didn't sound familiar to me even a little bit, and I looked it up. And also, I'm not really sure why this movie exists because it is a action thriller starring Ben Affleck and Samuel L. Jackson, where two men get into a car accident, and then due to their road rage, we get a full-on action thriller. I'm sorry,
So,
what?
so I have not seen this movie, but I have seen this cover of this movie lately. I think
Yeah,
it must have been added to one of the streaming services. But also good for JLo and Ben Affleck for having the top spots this week.
yeah.
What a time to be alive.
But also, could you imagine road rage so bad it causes an entire action thriller and then
I don't
people
know. I
watching that
mean,
movie?
watching it, that I'm not sure about.
Right,
Causing
right.
an entire action thriller, I could see it.
Yeah. So
Look.
I was very confused when I saw this. And then I got to the on this day and I also spiraled and deep dived into something that I hadn't no idea because on this day, April 12th, 2002, Pedro Carmona was installed as the president of Venezuela as part of a 36-hour coup against Hugo Chavez. Um, but don't worry, it only lasted 36 hours and Chavez was reinstated the next day. And Carmona was put under house arrest for, trying to usurp Chavez's
Sure.
dictatorship. Sorry, presidency, not dictatorship.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Sure. But he eventually escaped Venezuela and got asylum in Colombia, where he was a professor and lived out the rest of his life.
What a
Teaching.
time.
But I'm sitting there and I was reading this and I was like, a coup in Venezuela? And I was like, I didn't think it happened that early. And so then I pulled it up and I go, oh no, this is just an attempted coup that failed. And don't worry, Chavez was there for another 10 years after that. Like, yeah. So, things that I didn't know existed. Samuel L. Jackson having road rage and Hugo Chavez being ousted for a total of 36 hours.
I love it.
And
Love to hear it.
and somehow this episode still less relevant than either of those things.
They made choices that even I knew were dumb.
Yeah. So, but I have a little bit of a fond spot for this episode for one reason and one reason only, and we will get to that very, very shortly. Um, and so I just want it to be better than it is. Um, this episode was directed and had the teleplay written by Peter DeLuise because the story was by Christopher Judge.
Oh,
Yes. And so this is
okay.
the writing debut for Christopher Judge for Teal'c. And so I want the episode to be better than it is, but it's just not.
And he wrote himself into it a lot. I feel like normally when they take on like a writing episode, they're not really in the episode a lot. Like,
Yeah, but I also think it's interesting because he didn't write the teleplay. He didn't write the dialogue. He just wrote the
yeah,
story. And I think the story itself could was interesting. Like the idea that this Jaffa rebellion was happening, and then it turns out it was
sure.
actually just a Goa'uld like subterfuging the whole idea of Jaffa rebellion. Like the story, the idea, the big picture,
Hmm.
not bad. I just don't think it was executed well.
Yeah,
And
I
I
agree.
don't, and the problem is that both the direction and the teleplay are by Peter DeLuise. So I feel like it kind of falls on Peter that this episode was subpar.
Hmm.
And Peter is not bad. Like we have plenty of
Sure.
experience of his. So then the weak link becomes, well, this is Christopher Judge's first episode and it was bad. So obviously it must be on him.
Yeah.
And so it just sucks because like I don't know who to put the blame on the fact that it was just not executed well.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
That is a
and
bummer.
the editing is by Alan Lee, so that's probably not the problem.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And the editing,
Um,
I didn't really like that didn't feel off or like
no,
that
the
didn't really
editing
feel wrong
and
or anything.
and the thing
So
is the direction didn't really either.
yeah.
To be honest,
It
nothing
was
really
the
felt
story.
off. Nothing really felt off. Like I didn't watch it and go, this is terrible. It just was like, you know what? I do think it's probably the direction though. Because I think that um Rick Worthy, who played Caetano, showed the suspicion too early. He was too
Yeah.
suspicious too early on, and so it was never believable that this wasn't going to go badly.
We never gave him the full benefit of the doubt. Like we had Jack doubting him from the very beginning. And
Which
that
is
was a little
normal.
bit too,
But
it is, but
Jack is always cynical and always doubting somebody. But it was just
it was too heavy-handed though.
it was so heavy-handed. Jack being
Mhm.
cynical and Teal'c and Braytek saying like you just don't understand Jaffa. Like I could have believed all of that if he wasn't clearly acting so suspiciously. Like there's a difference between we
Mhm.
don't understand Jaffa with some of the weird shit that Braytek and Teal'c say, and we don't understand Jaffa with how Caetano was acting. Like
Yeah.
everything was that's what it was. There was no subtlety.
Hmm.
And I do think that that's direction more than story.
Yeah. No, it is.
So, I'm
And maybe
sorry.
casting. I mean, maybe Rick Worthy wasn't the one to play this role because he was so like suspicious
Well,
in it. And like maybe
right.
he built the character this way.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way to
That's
know.
true. And that's so Rick Worthy is obviously who I'm talking about for our guest actor.
Yeah.
He's known for While You Were Sleeping, Duplicity, Star Trek Insurrection, and Battlestar Galactica. He's been in like everything. He's one of those guys who doesn't have any big name roles, but he's been in 2 or 3 episodes of literally every show that's ever
Yeah.
existed. He grew up in Detroit. He's done a lot of stage work. He's won awards for his stage work in Chicago. But the thing that he's most known for, the thing that people hire him for, is his voice and that deep, like commanding voice.
Mhm.
And that voice kind of immediately tells you either this guy is the president of the world or
Yeah.
he's a villain. Like you don't
Yeah.
have you don't have a voice like that like unless you're like Obama or Scar. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah. You are one or the other.
right. And so it was he's a good actor. I just think that he was the wrong choice for this. And then combined with a direction that went too heavy into like
Mhm.
trying to psych you out, you were never quite psyched out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yep. I will say I didn't know the final twist before we got there, but I did know he was bad before we got there.
right. And
Like,
my mom and I had a really interesting conversation while we were watching it. Like I paused it a couple times and we were when I was taking notes and her and I were talking things out. And the thing that almost makes you question, like you know he's bad from the beginning, something just feels
mhm.
off, but it almost makes you question it if you look at it as a conversation or a comment on people escaping cults. Because often when you escape a cult, you go from one cult like behavior to another because you
Mhm.
don't know anything different. So the idea that he escapes the Goa'uld only to rule the Jaffa in a cult-ish way because that's all he knows could
Yeah.
mean that while he's bad, he's redeemable. And so there is a conversation to be had, but you have to be thinking on like 6 layers deeper than what the show is really doing for that conversation
Yeah.
to even appear. As just like a blanket, just watch the episode once. Never once do you think, oh, actually, he could be a good guy.
Yeah. And I think
And
watching Stargate, like it's not that deep. Like it
no,
has episodes where it brings in like military stuff underneath, it brings in religion underneath, but like even when we
but
had the cult episode, it wasn't like
right.
it was
But
about
yeah,
military.
exactly. Even when it brings in military or religion, it's never that many layers below the surface.
Yeah.
Like it's always like maybe the comment they're making is masked, but the thing that they're commenting on isn't.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know. It was
Yeah.
but I also feel like Christopher Judge just based on the conversation I had with him when I met him in person and the way he acts in the show and other interviews I've seen with him, I believe that he could come up with a story that was that many layers deep. I just don't think Stargate is the vessel for it in this manner.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
I was thinking about that while you were saying that. I was like, this could be something, that Christopher Judge would write, that he would go, he would make a lot of layers. He would be a good writer. And I don't know if he's written anything else. I don't remember honestly if you told me before if he had. But
I didn't tell you anything about anybody in their roles outside of their acting roles for the show
yeah.
specifically for that. Because I know Michael Shanks, we've had direct one
Uh-huh.
episode, and then Christopher Judge wrote this one. So that is the first time that we've seen them outside of their roles as actors.
Yeah. And then I mentioned Amanda Tapping because she worked on some of the horror stuff with some of our horror
Yes.
people. Yeah. So I wonder if he's written anything else that you could see and you can look and maybe be like, oh, it's a little convoluted for Stargate, but it is his writing style and it is good writing, Um,
Yeah.
do some comparison like that. But I agree, it's too it like I said, it's too convoluted for Stargate because Stargate's a lot more surface level to the extent of you go 1 or 2 layers down for sci-fi TV, but you don't have to go into the psychological mind like it's a thriller
Yeah.
or anything else. So
No, I agree. I agree. So, I will say I just double checked. This because this is not the last time he will write for this show, but he has also never written anything outside of this show. So he has no
check in the next
yeah.
one.
Yeah, he has no non-Stargate writing credits. But
Interesting.
yeah.
Still not my biggest problem with this episode.
So we
We'll get there.
we start the episode with Caetano, who at this point we don't know his name, but I did, so I wrote it. Caetano, the former first prime of Imhotep, is speechifying about the freedom of the Jaffa, and he's trying to raise up an army against the Goa'uld and make a free world. And Braytak and Teal'c are in the crowd listening to his speech. I did not write the details of his speech. It was very much like a presidential yeah, it was like a presidential campaign speech. It was very stereotypical what you would think that they would be saying in this case. But for some reason, Braytak and Teal'c were like all into it. And then we get the credits.
Yep.
So it's fine. At this point, I don't have any problems with the episode because, and truthfully, at this point, I really didn't feel like there was doubt in him at this point. Like, I don't know. Like, why couldn't
he didn't do anything.
Yeah, he was just talking about like what it meant to be free, and why couldn't there be another Jaffa who felt that way? Like, clearly,
maybe he is president of the world at this point. We don't know.
Yeah, and like clearly, Teal'c and Braytak feel very strongly and speak very passionately when they speak about their freedom. And then Ragnar, who we see later in this episode, who we did already see in one of those episodes where Teal'c was off recruiting Jaffa scouts and stuff, like he feels that strongly about it too. So like it isn't impossible that this is a thing that happened. And as a first prime, you have a commanding presence. Like Braytak and Teal'c both know that. So like fine. After the credits, we are back on Earth, and the SG team is discussing whether it's in their best interest to make an alliance with Caetano, even though he doesn't really have anything to give them. He just needs stuff from them. And Jack is immediately like, this just doesn't feel quite right. But then Teal'c makes a really good point that it isn't the most ideal alliance. But at the same time, with the Tok'ra in shambles and the Tollin gone, they're down to their only true alliances are the Nox and the Asgard, who will both not interfere. So
it's very valid.
It is valid, and obviously they have like smaller things like the planet of the light and the dark that we haven't talked about in a while, and they've got like other like primitive societies that are helpful to them. But in terms of actual technological and fighting alliances, the Asgard are, because of the treaty, going to stay hands off of the Earth, and the Nox are like the epitome of pacifists, and they would rather turn you into a flower than help you fight. So like, never going to happen. So without the Tollin, and at the state that the Tok'ra are currently in, they have to have an alliance somewhere. And then Daniel explains that Imhotep was, while in the Earth stories of Egypt, responsible for the first pyramid, and that's why his names are in books and stuff, he was fairly insignificant as a Goa'uld. Like, he is not a
This is my biggest issue with this episode is that why we've talked about thousands of times how there are 8 billion gods in all of the different places. So why did we pick Imhotep, who is an educator, who is, important in the grand scheme of things, a philosopher or whatnot, but is not a god as our focus of this episode? Like, and it's not, and I understand that, I know that he's like defeated really easily. Like he's like, they talk about how he's not that big of a deal, but I just feel like I don't want to introduce philosophers, etc., as lesser Goa'uld.
But Imhotep is not just a philosopher.
Well, he's like an educator. I looked it up. I don't remember exactly what he is, but he's not a god.
He was the high priestess of Ra. So he he wasn't a god, but he was
Yeah.
like the closest you could get to a god, and like he was still worshipped in a way. So
Yeah, it just feels like they're
it makes sense in the sense that the Goa'uld, like you think about the Goa'uld and how they have populated and how many of them there are and how the system lords are this class above it. So it would make sense that the if the system lords are the gods, why wouldn't the more insignificant Goa'uld be high priestesses and philosophers and other important people in the mythos that aren't gods?
it and then that makes sense. It just feels like a slippery slope of we're going to introduce too many things that make it convoluted. Because like
Well,
especially because Ra has been defeated, so why would you then bring in Imhotep? Because being, under Ra,
the
that
problem
team
is
should be done.
the problem is bring in is kind of a misnomer in the sense that that might be the first time we are seeing them in the show, but theoretically, all of these gods and all of these high priestesses exist.
Yeah.
Whether
I just feel
we've,
like Imhotep would have been taken out with Ra. Like,
but why?
because they were next in line. You always take the one or like the high priestess, the like high people in their
But you have to
town
remember
would
they
be
weren't
taken out.
taken that none of them were still on Earth. Their power structure when they were talked about, when they were actually had access to Earth in ancient times, isn't the same as what their power structure elsewhere in the world is. So, like in the universe. So just because they were a Goa'uld who served under Ra at on Earth doesn't mean that once access to Earth left and they all formed their own things that they wouldn't become their own level of power.
I
The
guess.
whole point of this character was that it was someone who did not have enough power to
Yeah.
do anything other than to feed on people's weaknesses.
Which also adds to my issue with them being too heavy-handed because why would you introduce someone that is not the top of the chain to say we beat them, now we can do anything? No, you can't. They're not a system lord. That was like
Well,
another element of I don't feel like
well,
Katana can take over as much as he says he can, you know?
and
Which they talk about.
yes, but it does also make sense that like the people who are actually able to have the freedom to create a society of free people aren't going to follow the most powerful gods. Like your Baals and your Ras and your Apophyses, their people, like their followers, are going to be much harder to pull away from the illusion than your lower class wolves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's annoying because it just makes an already confusing social structure more confusing,
Right.
but it isn't as illogical as it appears in this episode. It's frustrating because it adds to the reasons why this episode feels like it was done poorly because everything you're saying about it being so heavy-handed and about it being such a weak character do make sense. And if we had had an introduction to this lower class of Goa'ulds earlier, or some kind of ability to get to know this structure, it might
Yeah.
have seemed less forced.
And maybe even if they introduced Imhotep with Ra before they killed him and said that he survived, and like maybe he took
Right.
over some of the people that Ra loved, I don't
Right.
know.
I
It
mean,
just,
and to be fair, they do kind of have the idea of lower gods or lower gods serving because like Zapakna
yeah,
and Osiris are not system lords. We know that from 2 episodes ago that they are not system lords. They are just miniature gods with their own Jaffa and their own armies that serve.
which is also crazy because Osiris is a huge god, like in
Yeah, in the actual
mythology.
pantheon. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to be fair, Osiris and Isis served together and then they were
Together, yeah.
killed. And then they were killed And then this jar brought Osiris out. So like
Yeah.
the reason Osiris isn't a system lord is because of time and lack of resources, not because of where they stand in the pantheon.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also the idea that what is even his name? Anubis, right? Is that who we're talking about? Who was the big god that they serve? Yeah. The idea that Zapakna, who I don't even know who the name doesn't sound Egyptian to me.
The
It
name
might
means
be.
nothing to me other than Stargate.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. I was right. I was 100% right. Zapakna is a Mayan god. Um, the idea that Zapakna, a Mayan god, is an underling to Anubis, a Greek or an Egyptian god, um, doesn't even make sense. Except for the fact that outside of the human sphere of things, all of the fighting and warring and alliances and trading has still been happening, and we've moved on.
Yeah. Well, I've also accepted that like these gods here are not like when you look at mythology, you're not looking at Egyptian versus Mayan versus Roman. Doesn't matter in the world of Stargate. They're just they're gods or they're not. They're system lords. Like they don't need to fall under like Egyptian doesn't need to fall under Egyptian.
Well, and
Mayan doesn't need to fall
also
under Egyptian.
exactly because we've also already determined that the Norse gods aren't Goa'uld.
Yeah.
And even in Earth, we recognize that Greek and Roman gods are the same people with different names. So like the idea of like delineating like this mythology versus this mythology doesn't work.
Right.
So trying to align people based on how they fall in actual mythology is nonsensical. As frustrating as it is because you want it to line up the way it's supposed to, it doesn't make sense. So
anyway, sorry, we haven't even started the episode yet.
No, it's fine. Well, so basically the idea is that because Imhotep was an insignificant Goa'uld, they would not have wised up to Caetano killing him and creating this whole rebellion. And it makes sense. And that's why I think that like it had to have been from a lower god. If a system lord perished because of their first prime and then their first prime went and formed an army, we'd all fucking know about it.
That's true. That's true.
So Hammond guarantees that they will send food and medical supplies, but like he's not really sure about weapons because we still don't really know what's going on. And they decide to send like a very small number to show good faith and to like suss out the situation. So they head out to meet Caetano, and then Ragnar is there, and he explains to all the other Jaffa that these humans are the real deal. They're actually going to help us, blah, blah, blah. And they show everything that they've got. The other warriors like appreciate the gestures of SG-1, but they're like, we really wish you had brought like real weapons. And
did they call them true weapons? Is that what
true weapons? Yeah, true weapons. And Jack is like, the fuck?
Yeah, Jack did not appreciate that.
No. So then Ragnar is going to take them through camp and show them everything. And like SG-1 questions how they can just assume everyone's loyalty. They're like, how do you know that everyone here is actually like with you? Like, what if they were spies? What if they like are working for another Jaffa and just trying to like, or another Goa'uld and just like trying to figure out what's going on here so they can sell you guys out? Like, you can't blindly trust people. And Braytek is like, Caetano is a warrior. He can see into the heart of the Jaffa.
That's also now a little frightening for the future. Because I did truly believe, not necessarily in this moment, but I did truly believe that both Braytek and Teal'c were very good at that. And now it shows that they're not, and it makes me concerned about what's going to happen in the future times.
Yeah, this episode, the biggest thing it does for the long term is completely change the infallibility that Braytek has had so far this series. But so then they go to see the training pits, and we see them doing this like it looks like the scene from Mulan, where all of the soldiers are practicing martial arts in sync.
Yeah.
And then we go over to the actual like training pit where there's hand-to-hand combat. And Braytak like tries to help, but Ragnar's like, no, you don't understand. Like they can't try to balance them. Like Kitano trains us to like be willing to die in order to achieve victory. Like you can't have the fear of death or you'll be and Braytak is like a little concerned, but he's like, okay, but like show me. I can understand that other people have different because Braytak is very open-minded. He's like, I was not sure when I met the humans that they knew what they were talking about, and they did. So like show me what you mean by that. Jack, on the other hand, is like, how about you fucking don't? Jack is pissed and he's like, you guys are literally just beating the shit out of each other for no reason. Like this is not working out. But before they can start fighting him instead, Keitano returns from a mission and the entire village gathers to welcome him home. Jack is like, man, we don't get that kind of reaction when we get
It made
home.
me think about when we were in college and we had oh my God, what was it called? Home band or something? I don't know. And the whole band, or like every Friday, there was a band that was just thrown together from our college band, and they would go and play and welcome the football players home when they got back from it, whether it was 1 a.m, whether it was midnight, and it was volunteer band
Yeah,
members who would just get together, and the band director would get out there and we would welcome them home with play. That's exactly what I thought of, and
that is,
except the football players were not terrible people for the most part.
yeah.
So
Um, but he like is happy to meet them, but he still seems like completely unfazed by their earth weapons and like not really into it. So Jack is like, how about I show you how stupid you are? And my mom goes, you know, Jack is a very ignorantly uh cocky about Earth's like superiority to a lot of these people. And I said, yes, but
mostly.
I said,
But
yes,
yeah.
Jack is like mostly yes. He does think everybody else is stupider than him, and he gets really mad when people try to do things that are not like Earthwise. But after 4.5 seasons of the show, we have for sure proved that staff weapons are not good weapons. Like, and the speech that he gives at the end of the like demonstration about how staff weapons only exist to intimidate you and scare you, they are not good weapons, and that the fighting, if you actually want to survive, the guns are better, and all of them who have been in an army that has fought against SG-1 can prove that. Like, he's not
Yeah.
wrong. Like, he is being an asshole about it because he doesn't trust Keitano, but
Right.
also he's not telling them anything that is talking down to them. He's telling them things that they've already proved time and time again.
Yeah, and it's like also, I mean, to be fair, like sure he's being a jerk, but to be fair, we walked in as humans and said,
Yeah.
we're going to help you against our better judgment because we don't know what's going on here, but we think that it is beneficial for everyone. Here's what we're offering. And they were like, great, thanks, we don't want it. And so he's
Yeah.
like, fine, you're going to be that way. Let me show you why you want it.
Mhm.
Like, so I get it.
Yeah. So then Keitano's finally like, great, we humbly thank you. So then they go and they're having dinner with these with it's the SG-1 plus Braytek and Keitano. And Jack and Keitano are fun arguing about how a good leader should lead and like what their alliance is actually there for and like who is gonna help who. And Braytek is just Braytek and he's like, can we just like chill? He's like, you guys are never gonna 100% agree on things. So like let's try to work this out.
Which is also fair. Like, this is the same thing Daniel Jackson said 3 episodes ago. Like, it is a proper way to
And
handle
in
shit.
another 20 minutes, it's the same thing Dan Jackson says.
Exactly.
Right. But no, but I mean, think about when the first time that Braytax Jaffa and the SG-1 had to work together. Like, no, there are things that they fundamentally don't agree on because of the belief systems of their people. But that doesn't mean you can't work together. And Braytac is just trying to like find the middle ground in a way that is helpful to everyone. Except for that he's being duped and he clearly can't see the heart of a warrior. So like moving on.
Well, his logic is there. It's just not today.
Yeah. And so then Caetano was like, our next mission is we're going to raid one of Near T's supply ships, but we can share the spoils. So we'll do this together. Okay, fine, whatever. If you really are a good guy, great. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I'll go with you. Like we're gonna go on this mission. You'll see how it works. Cool.
This is fine for now.
Yeah. And so then we see Ragnar asking Teal'c if he's gonna join them. And Teal'c's like, yeah, but like Caetano hasn't asked me to join them yet. Like I'm not just gonna crash your party. And he's like, no, but like you were the first one. You were the first one to openly rebel. You're the first one to kill a system lord. Like you deserve a place in the like leadership if there's going to actually be a free Jaffa army. Like this is where you belong. And so then they start discussing how the alliance is like fragile because the Tower really don't understand them and like they're trying to figure out how to do it best. And Teal'c is kind of trying to navigate. Yes, he wants Jaffa to be free, and that's his whole goal, and that's why he joined the SG-1 in the first place. But after 5 years, like these are his friends, and so he's not sure. But Caetano comes in as they're talking about this, and he's like, "I get it. I understand. You're right. Like there's a lot that we don't understand." He's like, "But the problem is Jaffa live in this world where they're not quite human and they're not quite gold, and so how do we work with them without compromising who we are?" And for a split second, you think maybe you're wrong and that they are actually tricking you with all this Caetano's a bad guy thing, because that is like the most true way to describe how Teal'c has always felt about this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we have a quick scene. I said the human contingent discusses their issues. And Jack's biggest issue, the thing that is setting off the most red flags to him, is that as a leader, he is trying to teach his people to have an indifference to death, which is very culty, very like dictatorial, very, very never a good leader.
It is very culty, but it is also very Jaffa. Like,
yes, but also it's very Jaffa because when have the Jaffa ever had leadership that wasn't indifferent to their death? And so like this is where you start to have the question of, is it because he doesn't know any better? Is it because or is it also actually bad? But like Jack's whole thing is like never in history, at least in human history, has a leader who has helped their people be indifferent to death been a good leader. Like you look at suicide bombings from any culture that participates in suicide bombing, whether it's like the Middle Eastern cultures or the Japanese cultures or like the Japanese suicide bombers and things like that. Suicide bombing has never been from a leadership that cares about the survival of the people that it is sending out there.
Yeah. I mean, let me tell you, I'm listening to Sinisterhood's episode about the Twin Flames cult, and I'm full of the cult right now.
If you listen to the way that the Jonestown cult was talked to about death and what it meant, it's basically exactly what Caetano was saying.
Yeah.
So it's not just militarily, like cults, military.
Right.
I mean, think about how the way that Nazi soldiers were trained. Like, it is never any time that your leader is like, you should die for me, probably don't listen to them.
Yeah, maybe don't die for them.
I mean, and it's very interesting because I was actually just listening to something recently that was talking about when did we stop going to war with the people, like not we as in me, I never, but like kings. You think about like medieval battles and like the Crusades and the battles between England and France and everything that happened in the medieval times. Who was the person at the front of the pack leading these people into battle? The king. You think about the Revolutionary War and the people that we think of as the revolutionary leaders. Who was in the front of the battle, leading the battle? The president, like the commanders.
The president, the generals,
When
the commanders.
Modern warfare has made it so easy to sit back and command without putting yourself in the battle. Mm-hmm. And that is also when the rise of dictatorships and like cults and sinister leadership has happened, because the leader no longer has to be at risk. Like in England in the 1400s, the king was not going into a war that he couldn't actively justify, because he was the one going into war. Now we can sit at a computer and send a bomb from halfway across the world and never be the one being hurt. So we can justify stupid shit. This guy is actively walking out there on the field with them.
Yep.
But also, is he?
But also, he's not the one who has a bomb strapped to him when they're going to the missions either.
And like when he came back with the Zat Negatiles and was talking about those 3 people who like died in the war and how it was so sad, my mom was like, it almost sounds like he traded them for the guns.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so like, but like Daniel's talking about it from like an anthropological level, and like how like samurais were not afraid of death and it's what made them braver. And I think that there is a difference between not fearing death and being indifferent to death.
Yes.
If you are a soldier and you were afraid to die, you are going to have a very hard time. Like they're not going to work.
A soldier.
If you are a soldier and you were like, well, yeah. So, but if you were a soldier and you were like, I am not afraid to die, if that is what has to happen, that is unfortunate. I don't want to die. Right. I will not fight to the death. I will. But if casualties happen, that's what I signed up for. That is different than saying, I don't care about dying. I will fight to the death. I will win no matter what, because my life is not important. Those are two very, very different things.
Absolutely.
So it's the next day, they all go into battle. And in battle, they surround the Jaffa of Nirti, and then everybody's starting to attack. And then, rather than attack, Caetano just like walks right up to the middle of this battle and looks this Jaffa in the face and is like, join us. And they all do. And somehow that makes him a good leader.
And doesn't seem like shady at all.
No. The problem is I've been re-listening to a lot of Hemlock Grove podcast stuff. So like I just immediately imagined the like weird glimmer power thing that Relman had, where he could just walk up to people and stare them in the face and make them do whatever he said. And I was like, I don't think he could have that, but like that's what that felt like.
Yeah. And I've been in a little bit of a different element. I've been dealing with a lot of business people. And it's like that thing where they're like, I'm going to say I can do this. I'm going to show you one example of how I do this. And then you're just going to believe that I do it forever. And then they never do anything again. And that is exactly how I felt at this moment. I was like, this is your one play to be like, I promise I can lead. I promise this. I led. I brought someone in. Great. I'm done.
I literally was like, he walked up to him and just like touched his shoulder and stared at him and was like, come with me. And I was like, okay, Roman. Like literally had so many Hemlock Grove flashbacks.
I also just watched that episode of Supernatural where they could do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of crossovers here.
So they get back to the planet and Jack is like, Teal'c, I'm a little bit concerned. Like Caetano's stunts, not great. And Teal'c's like, I disagree. Look he brought all these people. And he's like, yeah, but we literally all could have died. And he would not have cared.
I also had a problem with when we got the weapons that no one else seemed to have a problem with, that like he was like, we'll split the spoils, this seems fair, but then he's like, we'll split the Naquadah or whatever with you, but you can't have any of this other thing.
Well, hold on, we're not quite there yet.
Oh, is that
no, okay. This was before they walked to the tent. This is when Jack is like desperately trying to get anybody to listen to him that something is wrong.
JK, we'll come back to it.
And Sam and Daniel are also like, I think you're being a little harsh. Like, do you genuinely still not think that he's the real deal after everything they saw? And Jack's like, yes, I genuinely still think. And the other thing is, Jack is the only one of them who has been through Black Ops interrogation. Like
That's true.
he was literally in the Gulf War. He was in Black Ops. Like he had to sit there as a POW, which we know he was, and see through this bullshit. And so why, whenever Jack doubts someone, do we not believe him? Like to this day, I still don't understand why Jack's gut is not everyone's first instinct.
Yeah, like we did that with Braytech and Tilk, and we're like, okay, we trust their gut, we go with it. But why can't we do the same thing with Jack as
And
also a leader?
and
Like,
and if Jack's gut was wrong, like they'd already be dead because Jack's gut told them to trust Teal'c and Braytak in the first place. Jack's
right.
gut, sometimes Jack is wrong, and Jack admits when he's wrong, and he did not care for that one Tok'ra lady, and he warmed up to her.
She's not
Ish.
great though, like
Yeah,
as a person.
right. So I just don't understand why we don't immediately trust. It's not like he literally has
Yeah.
training in this.
Right. And also like when he's wrong, it's not a life or death wrong. Like it's like, oh, we could have trusted that person. Let's trust them now because it
Yeah,
doesn't matter that
because
we didn't trust them an
do
hour
we
ago. Like
do we not remember 2001? Like the only person who thought that these Ashen were bad people was Jack. Who was right? Jack.
yeah.
If the
That's what I
only
think of every
person
time.
if the only person who has a gut feeling that you're incorrect is Jack, you were incorrect. Like I just don't understand. Um and so now they follow Kitano into his tent and he shows them the spoils and Sam's like, holy shit, that's a lot of Naquita. And he's like, I will give you guys your share of the Naquita, what is fair, which okay. But we need to keep all the Zats to ourselves for now because a mothership is on its way, and once the mothership comes, then I will give you your share of the weapons as well. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, yeah, there's some Jaffa that are loyal to me. They're staging a mutiny. They're going to bring us an entire mothership. And every single red flag that exists goes up in Jack's head. And still no one cares. Then Caetano sends Tarek and a squad of men with a suicide bomb into Nirti's camp to cover their tracks. And Jack is fucking pissed.
Yeah.
And Caetano's like, take it or leave it. Like, this is who we are. And the fact that at this point, Teal'c and Braytak still don't think that there's anything wrong is very frustrating to me. Like, you can see that Braytak is a little hesitant, but he really doesn't want to be wrong. Because
is like, sure, they grew up with the Jaffa. They were a part of this whole world, so they get it. But like, I don't know all about the Jaffa. But I don't feel like suicide missions were really a big part of what they did. Like that. I mean,
they are because the Goa'uld don't care about them. So like, if Jaffa dies, it doesn't matter. So like, suicide missions happened all the time.
True.
But
like Goa'uld didn't do it to other Goa'uld. Like, it was the people that were like their underlings. And so here's the thing with like the Jaffa now being like, why would they then send their own people in? When there has to be a better way.
It's just Braytak and Teal'c, and I don't blame them because Braytak and Teal'c have fought so long and in secret and so hard to have a free Jaffa movement. And in their minds, they're finally getting everything that they worked for, and it's right there. And one shred of doubt is going to crush everything. And so, like,
it's like when someone love bombs you.
Yes. It's exactly what it is. It's every day that your toxic narcissistic boyfriend actually does something nice for you. It
starts you back at one.
Yeah. Ugh. It's when you have the engagement ring and the white picket fence and everything's going well, and then he does that one thing that you're like, oh God, this is a sign. But then no, it's not, because if it is, then my whole life falls apart.
Right.
So, and Teal'c and Braytak are with Caetano, and they're talking about the next mission, and Caetano has entrusted them to be in charge of taking down you.
Which then is my next prop. Because I have now grown this unnecessary fondness for you. I understand that he's technically a system lord,
Yeah.
but he seems like the most reasonable. And so he's not the first one I want to take out. Like, I
Agreed.
want to save him. I want to take someone else out.
Right, agreed. But in terms of, we know he's weakened because he was just
Yeah.
stabbed and had his army taken down. He's the best target. And if all Goa'uld are targets and he's the easiest, let's go for it. I get it.
But
I'm
he
with you.
also came out and he was like, yeah, we thought he died. And you're like, no, he was put into the sarcophagus and he's fine now. And it's like, well, then he's not weak anymore. Like,
I know.
he's
Yeah.
fixed. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
For sure, not the one I would go after. I
Yeah.
also have an unnecessary attachment to him, like as the nicest of the bad guys. Like I get it.
Right.
But anyway, Jack questions how oh, then they're telling Jack about it, and Jack questions this one, how moving the Jaffa from one lord that they unquestioningly follow to another lord that they're unquestioningly follow is any better. And this is when Caetano loses his mind and he gets angry and he's like, I'm done with your questions.
Yeah.
And that
Again,
is
another sign.
another sign. That is literally, that is gaslighting 101.
Here we are.
We are
Your
all in
toxic
a toxic
with Kitano.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's legitimately gaslighting them in because he's like, your questions are stupid. No, sir, you just don't have an answer for them.
Mhm.
But what's next? So Jack is like, hey, Teal'c, listen, I am not going to be recommending this alliance.
Fair.
And Teal'c's like, can we talk about it when I come back? And Jack's like, you're not going to come back. Like, don't do it. He's sending you on a suicide mission. Like, don't do it. And Teal'c's like, can you please just have faith in me? Like, I've had faith in every decision you've ever made. Please, just this one time, have faith in me. Which I would totally support if it wasn't because he was falling victim to the gaslighting of his domestic partner who
Sure.
is
And
abusing him.
also, like,
Like
Teal'c has had some, like, questionable choices he's made. Not for questionable reasons, but, like, there have been
yeah.
moments, like, when he was losing it for his revenge, like, he went a little bit too far there and, like, put himself at
Or
risk.
like when
and,
he
like,
got himself caught in the collapsed gate because he stayed behind too long just to make sure Tamith died.
right. Like, there's a lot of choices he made that were not the right choices, even if they weren't for the wrong, like, even if they were still for good, decent reasons or whatever, they weren't
Yeah.
bad reasons. And so, like, I'm still gonna go with, like, Jack's expertise probably over Tilt's.
So Teal'c leaves and Jack and Caetano just like stare each other down for a second. And then we cut to the outside of Yu's palace, and then we immediately jump into the next scene. And when we jumped into the next scene, Brianna literally was like, did we miss something? I was like, no. And she goes, are you sure? I go, yeah. She goes, so we missed something that happened off screen. I said, yes. She goes, okay, because that jump made no sense.
Yeah, I had the same feeling.
So
I was
we,
like, I feel like we're starting the part 2 of a part 1. Like,
yeah. So Yu has Teal'c beat to shit laying on the ground in front of him. And Yu, because he is Yu and we love him, says, listen, I'm going to let you go because I genuinely don't think that your faith in anything has ever been blind. That's not who you are. So I'm going to let you go. He said, so I'm going to let you live and I'm even going to let you go home. But you need to know something first.
which makes him not a bad guy. He's like protecting these people that he's theoretically at war with.
Right.
I'll buy it. I think he's a good guy.
So Braytak and Caetano are like, Jack, please reconsider. And he's like, no. Like, and whenever this ends, whatever happens to Teal'c, I'm holding you personally responsible for because I do not see this going well. So Jack and Sam and Daniel start to head back to the gate. They try to dial the gate, but then the gate dials in instead.
First of all, I knew that was going to happen. But if I didn't know that was going to happen, the snail's pace that Carter is using to dial in
Yeah,
would have given it away.
yeah, we've dialed the gate much faster than that many times
Yeah.
before. I don't know what we're doing. But then Teal'c arrives at the gate, and Jack's like, "Teal'c, what happened?" And he just fucking books it. And we are like, "Well, whatever you just told him was fucked up because he gone." And we know Teal'c does not handle his emotions well. So
Sure. Yeah.
Teal'c runs past SG-1 to the center of the camp and starts calling Caetano out. And he's like, "You're a deceiver. You're a deceiver. You're a blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "The mutiny failed. The mothership that's on its way isn't going to bring us salvation. It's going to bring us doom. All of these people are going to die, and it's all your fault." And everybody's just kind of like, "Well, you're the new guy. Caetano knows what he's talking about." So Teal'c challenges Caetano with like the ancient Jaffa right to like take someone out of the leadership.
What is it? Summa Joe
It's something with an S and a J, and I didn't write the words down, and I should have.
I don't know.
Yeah, Joma Seku.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Let's see if I
I think
Googled
that's the
Joma.
one.
Oh, I Googled Joma Seku, and it came up correctly as the Jaffa word. So
Great.
I remembered that. Wow, look at my brain working on a Monday.
Look at you.
So he challenges him to Joma Seku to take over, and Caetano is clearly winning the fight. It is not looking good. Part of it is because Teal'c started the fight already fucked up from whatever happened.
Already like half dead.
He wasn't healed. He wasn't healed from whatever happened on Yu's ship, so not a good time. And also awkward. Caetano's not a Jaffa, so
shocking.
And Caetano whispers in Teal'c's ear to reveal to him that he is in fact not a Jaffa. He is Imhotep. And Teal'c stabs him straight in the stomach. And Ragnar sees the like goes to look at the wound to like prove that
he's dead.
Caetano is dead, and sees that there's no pouch in his stomach. So he is not Jaffa. And they all discover that this was Imhotep flaying the Jaffa by using their freedom as a tool to get them to follow him instead of whatever Jaffa or whatever Goa'uld they were following before. And Teal'c is like, "I am now technically your leader. I won the battle. I am the first prime. I'm the ruler. I'm asking you, if you want to live, follow me." And Ragnar supports him, and then they all run away as the planet starts to get bombed. And then there's a sweet moment at the end as they're about to get into the gate, and Braytek is helping carry Teal'c because Teal'c is still dying. Right. And Braytek says, "Our day will come. It's just not today."
Yeah, that was kind of sad.
Yeah. So what a time.
What a time.
So, I don't have a ton of trivia for this episode. The only thing that was on IMDb was that the Mustaba, the fighting art that they are doing, is actually Brazilian capoeira. That's the type of martial arts that they were doing. So that's cool. But I do have some kind of like depressing trivia. Excellent. As you know, this episode came out in April of 2002, and based on the filming schedules of things, you can probably figure out that when 9/11 happened, this was the episode that was in secondary filming, like secondary units, and the next episode, episode 19, was the one that was in primary units. So every time that Joseph Malosi tries to talk about these two episodes, he can't, because they're the two episodes that were being filmed on 9/11. And so like that's all he can think about when he thinks about these episodes. So that's why there's not a lot of trivia or not a lot of interviews about them, because nobody really has any memories of filming them because of everything that was happening, which also could explain why things just didn't fit together quite right. Because if this was what was in production, and if especially if they were in secondary and they were doing post unit stuff, the main actor stuff was filmed, but like it just could have fallen apart.
Mhm.
So that is that is that. I
Bummer.
yeah, that's all I have for that. So who do you want to punch?
Oh my gosh, so many people. But I guess like realistically, I'm gonna pick Katano. Even though I also want to punch every person that didn't listen to Jack.
That's fair. I'm gonna punch Teal'c for falling for
Mhm.
Keitano's bullshit.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair. That's what I was split between.
who is your MVP?
It's Jack. He's the only one that made any sense, other than like you who killed it. But like Jack is the only one who did anything proper
Yeah.
and had any common sense. So
Um, yeah, I'm gonna pick you because
mhm.
there was nobody else other than Jack who did anything good.
Yeah.
Um, I am now questioning everything. Um, because I don't know. So I will just tell you, next week's episode has a one-word title that starts with an M. But also, 2 episodes later is a one-word title that starts with an M. And now I'm trying to remember which one of those two is actually the one that I want it to be. And I really, truly do think that next week is the week that we will have a guest. But I might be wrong. So I might have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. Great news.
No, I'm now that I'm looking at it, I'm trying to remember the conversation and I'm like, am I entirely incorrect? Like, I'm like 98% sure we have a guest next week.
Well, stay tuned to find out.
Yeah, so my spoiler is I don't know what's happening. Um,
Great.
no,
Very helpful.
my spoiler is that for the rest of the season, everything is connected. Not
Ooh.
to this. Not
Sure.
to this.
No. Yeah, no, no, no,
But
no, no,
but
no.
no, but for the we have 4 episodes left in the season and there is an arc that goes through all 4 of them. So
Oh, that's a
that
longer
is,
arc we've had for end of a season ever.
yeah. Yeah. It's not like directly like part 1, part 2, like directly
Sure.
following, but there is an actual cohesive like story that is gonna happen. So
Very stoked. Very excited.
yes. Yeah. So that is my trivia and my spoiler and our wrap up. So do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, great. Well, if you, the viewers, have anything else that you would like to add, you can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me everywhere at That's not mine, that's yours.
That's me. You can follow her
Wow.
there too, though. I post for both
Yeah.
of us all the
Yeah.
time.
You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And we will see you on Thursday for a thrilling episode of Thriller Thursday. Bye.